relating to affordably priced rental units and the Sussex County Rental Unit Programme. In just a moment, I'm going to yield to Mr Robertson to provide an update. Just to summarise and recap, County Council may remember this from the public hearing that was held on June 28th of this year. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the record was left open for a period of 2 weeks for the receipt of additional written comments only. County Council then considered the ordinance again at Council's meeting of August 9th of this year, where Council discussed the application and deferred action on the ordinance for further consideration. And then at the September 27th meeting, staff provided an update to County Council on the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I thought, with your indulgence, since we have some young folks here who are interested in how government works, it occurred to me that this is the tip of the iceberg in an ordinance, and maybe with your permission, I could go through the rest of the ordinance or the iceberg just real quick to explain how we got here, if that's okay. Because I figured you all are going to hear, we've got a motion or an ordinance that we're looking at this afternoon that's 34 pages in length, and you're going to hear council either vote to approve it or deny it, and you might wonder, well, that's an awful quick discussion for 34 pages of ordinance. So and I'm not going to prolong this too much, but the county every year does a comprehensive plan every 10 years, and that's sort of big picture, what direction we want the county to go in, and the public's involved in that, county council's involved in that, planning and zoning is involved in it, and it's a document like this thick. If you ever want to read it, it's on our website. In that, it said that in Sussex County, we need more affordable and workforce housing for the people that want to work here. Because there's lots of homes being built, but if you're starting out right out of high school or college, or depending on your career, you might not be able to afford it. So that's great. We need to do it. The next step was, well, how do we do it? And then County Council at that stage actually commissioned a consultant, because we don't know necessarily the best ways to figure this stuff out. So the County Council hired a consultant to do that, and they commissioned a report on different ways that we can create or incentivize more affordable or workforce housing here in Sussex County, housing that folks can afford to live and work, here in the county. With that, then what we do is we drafted an ordinance. This is back to that 34-page ordinance that goes into our county code. It becomes law if it's adopted by these folks up here. Once this is drafted, it gets introduced, and then it goes to a hearing in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission on some Thursday night, and they all sit here on Thursday nights. We have a whole bunch of public come in. So in this case, we had people that would build this stuff come in and talk about it. We had housing advocates come in and say whether they like it or not. We had members of the public come in and say whether they thought it was a good idea. Planning and Zoning, that commission makes a recommendation to County Council. They all have the final say. They're the ones that are elected to have the final say on laws. And so we had another public hearing in front of County Council where the same folks, anybody could come in and say whether they thought it was a good idea or a bad idea, or even make suggestions on how to improve it. And so that's all happened, and it's taken quite some time to do that between the comp plan, the consultant's report, throw COVID in the middle of that, drafting the ordinance, having all these public hearings, and in some cases we had more than one public hearing just to get as much information as we could. And so that's all occurred, and so that's where we are today. It's sort of the last step. We've got some proposed amendments to it based on what everybody has sort of learned from the hearing process, which I'm going to present to these folks, and if they decide to act on those amendments, then we'll act on the ordinance. So anyway, I wanted to sort of explain that because as you sit here this evening, you might not realize all the time and effort that's gone into this with County Council, certainly, staff and the consultant and everything, how we get from point A to point Z really on an ordinance or a new law change. So anyhow, thank you, Mr. President. I thought that
very good.
Might be sort of helpful for context.
Can I ask a quick
Sure.
question? You say it's your wish or intent for the council to vote on this today?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the reason we shouldn't, but yes. That's
Well,
right.
I would say we're prepared with motions to amend it, so, yeah. So with that, as you'll recall, I think the last time we were here a couple of weeks ago, we went through, I think it was 8 or 9 different items that were sort of what was gleaned from all the various comments we received in the public hearing process to improve the ordinance. And so I have a list of amendment motions to do that. I think, Mr. Moore, do you need to read the short title?
Yes, it would be appropriate to read the short title before you start making motions. So, Mr. President, with your permission, I'll read that.
Please do.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Sussex County, Chapter 72, Article 2, Roman numerals
Section 72-16 through 72-28, and Chapter 115, Articles 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, all Roman numerals, Sections 115-20, 115-25, 115-29, 115-34, 115-37, 115-42, 115-45, 115-50, 115-53, and 115-58 regarding affordably priced rental units and the Sussex County Rental Unit SCRP program.
So, Mr. President, the first proposed amendment to the ordinance as introduced was to amend the residency requirement and criminal history requirements. And with that, I have a motion to do that.
Please read your motion.
It's be it moved that the workforce housing ordinance, which is what I'm calling the short title of what Mr. Moore just read, addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, in Chapter 72 of the Sussex County Code, be revised to amend the residency requirement and criminal history requirement by amending Section 72-20 of the County Code at Section 1 of the ordinance at lines 337 to 351, so that they now read as follows. And that's Section 720-20, minimum standard of eligibility for tenants. A, there shall be a preference given to tenants who have worked or resided in Sussex County for at least 1 year preceding application to the SCRP. In addition, eligible tenants must, 1, have proof of citizenship, 2, be of eligible income as defined in Section 72-19 above, and be able to pay the first month's rent and any required security deposit, and 3, comply with the criminal and credit history requirements for tenants of all leases within the proposed housing development.
Pleasure of council.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Schaefer.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hudson. Any questions on the motion? Take the vote. Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Riley.
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carried. Next, sir.
Okay, the next one has to do with, I believe there was several of you that wanted this to come up for automatic renewal, or review in a certain period of time, just to see how well it's working, if there's any changes need to be made. That doesn't prohibit council from doing that next month if they want to, but this just pegs a date when that should happen. So this motion is, be it moved that the workforce housing ordinance addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, in Chapter 72 and relevant portions of Chapter 115 of the Sussex County Code be revised to add an automatic review of the ordinance by adding a new sentence at the end of Section 72-27 in Section 1 of the ordinance at lines 691 to 698 as follows. And that sentence says, therefore, Sussex County shall commence a comprehensive review of this SCRP program on or before January 1, 2028, and by inserting the following sentence in Sections 115-20, 115-29, 115-37, 115-47, and 115-53 of the Zoning Code at Sections 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 of the ordinance after lines 833, 897, 960, 1022, and 1085 as follows. Sussex County shall commence a comprehensive review of the provisions of this SCRP program as set forth herein on or before January 1 of 2028.
So that's a 5-year period.
Yes. Yes.
Pleasure of council.
I'll move for adoption.
Motion, Mr. Riley. Second,
I'll second.
Mr. Hudson. Questions on the motion? Take the vote. Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Riley.
I'll vote yes, but I'm hoping that we get more frequent reports than 5 years.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carried. Next, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And we can certainly do that. That doesn't preclude reports, because I think that would be helpful to everybody, planning and zoning and county council, to have those.
We prepare the annual report for county council every June anyway, so
Yeah.
roll into that. So.
And I imagine, too, with the annual, is that the annual comp plan report? Yeah. The third motion is, be it moved, and this has to do with reducing the required percentage of SCRP units within a development from 30% is introduced to 25%. So that motion is, be it moved that the workforce housing ordinance addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, and relevant portions of Chapter 115 of the Sussex County Code be revised to reduce the required percentage of SCRP units within a development by changing the percentage of SCRP units from 30% to 25% in Sections 115-20, 115-29, 115-37, 115-47, and 115-53 of the Zoning Code at Sections 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 of the ordinance at lines 796 to 800, 860 to 864, 9 924 to 927, 987 to 990, 1050 to 1053, so that these now state as follows: a Sussex County rental program, or SCRP, townhouse or multifamily development governed by and subject to Chapter 72, where at least 25% of all dwelling units are SCRP units pursuant to Chapter 72. The SCRP development must satisfy the following criteria, etc. That's that motion.
Pleasure, council.
I'll move for adoption.
Motion,
This is based on commentary received from potential builders.
That's correct. As we went through the hearing process, we did hear commentary or comments based on the economics that the 25%, the 30% was a threshold that was difficult or impossible to meet, and 25% was more realistic.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense to do this program if it's not taken advantage of.
Right. Which is kind of why we started with this process, because we have one that wasn't taken advantage of. Yeah.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Mr. Hudson. Questions on the motion? Take the vote. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
I have yes, motion carried. And just for the students' benefit sitting here, the attorneys are not paid by the word. They're not reading a lot to get more money.
Maybe I should change my, no. The fourth motion is, be it moved that the workforce, and this one has to do with adding, let me back up, adding the commercial area to the areas on our future land use map where this program can go. Currently, it's the town center, the developing area, and the coastal area on that future land use map. Based on, again, commentary we heard during this process, there was a desire to add the commercial area as well. That's not commercial zoning, it's commercial area on the future land use map. So this is, be it moved that the workforce housing ordinance addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, in relevant portions of Chapter 115 of the Sussex County Code be revised to include the comp plan's commercial area for the list of appropriate areas designated on the future land use map by inserting the term commercial area in sections 115-20, 115-29, 115-37, 115-47, and 115-53 of the zoning code at sections 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 of the ordinance at lines 801 to 804, 865 to 868, 928 to 931, 991 to 994, 1054 and 1054 to 1057, so that these now state as follows: the site must be located within a town center, a developing area, commercial area, or the coastal area as described within the land use element and as shown on the future land use plan of the adopted Sussex County Comprehensive Plan.
Pleasure, council.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Schaefer.
So,
Second,
second.
Mr. Riley. Questions on the motion?
The, some of the concerns expressed by the public were, where this could be potentially located, developments like this. Mm-hmm. And, we wouldn't necessarily want them just springing up in cornfields across the, the open space in the county. So the big guardrails that are going to determine where these projects could be placed would be sewer and water. Mm-hmm. And
there's several. So there's, the future land use map, like we talked about, that's
right.
one. Whether there's sewer and public, central sewer and water,
right.
That's the other. Then there's also the proximity to the roadways, which we're going to get to in a second.
Right.
Because one of the next motions coming up is that the problems or the concerns about tying it to DART routes.
Right.
So we changed that, or we're asking to change that to types of roadways, roadway classifications.
Right.
So those are all kind of the
then
guardrails.
the acreage required is, what, 10 acres?
We did not require an acreage in it, just because there
We
were.
felt, based on the engineering, that it wouldn't be possible to do
Right,
it
right.
with less than 10 acres.
Right. We didn't want to preclude smaller projects, but at the same time, I don't know for certain where that cutoff line is, but you're going to have at least 25% of the units be SCRP units. So if you have, a 1 acre site, that means you have 3 market rate and, rounds up basically all the time to at least 1. So there's that element of it, the economics of doing it on a small scale, plus just the water, the sewer, the stormwater management, everything else is really going to make it, and the open space requirements is going to make it probably be at least 5 acres would be my guess. I don't know. That's probably roughly a minimum, Mr. Whitehouse, I'm
Correct.
presuming.
We
Yeah.
modelled at 10, and 10
Yeah.
was viable, but definitely smaller, but definitely larger than 5.
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
Yeah, so the probability of this type of project popping up in a cornfield on a back road is slim to none.
Yeah, particularly right, because if there's the limiting factor on that's going to be the central water and sewer.
Water and sewer.
Right.
More questions? Take a vote. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
I vote yes, motion carried. Next, sir.
So with that segue, the next one has to do with deleting the requirements of proximity to DART routes and replace it with proximity to roadway types. So this one is, be it moved that the Workforce Housing Ordinance addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, in relevant portions of Chapter 115 of the Sussex County Code be revised to delete the requirement of proximity to a DART route and replace it with proximity to roadway types in Sections 115-20, 115-29, 115-37, 115-47, and 115-53 of the Zoning Code at Sections 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 of the ordinance at lines 806 to 810, 870 to 874, 933 to 937, 996 to 1000, 1059 to 1063, so that these now state as follows. The site shall be located within 2,640 feet of a principal arterial road, minor arterial road, or major collector road as classified by the Delaware Department of Transportation. In addition, an applicant should make every effort to coordinate with DART for transit access to and from the site.
Pleasure of council.
Move for adoption.
Motion, Mr. Hudson, second, Mr. Schaefer. Questions on the motion? We'll take the vote. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
I vote yes, motion carried. Next.
Thank you. And the reason, just as we're going through this, it's the same wording appears in each of the different zoning districts. That's why it's repeating in the different sections. This one was a really minor one. The way it was introduced, it said that the setback area had to have walking and biking trails. I'm not sure why it said shall, and then now it says may. So this is, be it moved that the Workforce Housing Ordinance addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, in relevant portions of Chapter 115 of the Sussex County Code be revised to amend the walking and biking trails design requirement by changing the word shall to may in Sections 115-20, 115-29, 115-37, 115-47, and 115-53 of the zoning codes at Sections 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 of the ordinance at lines 820 to 823, 884 to 887, 947 to 950, 1010 to 1013, and 1073 to 1076, so that these now state as follows. There shall be a 100-foot wide setback around the entire site, which shall incorporate the forested and/or landscape buffer strip identified in Section 99-5. This setback may include walking and hiking trails, walking and biking trails.
Pleasure of council.
Move for adoption.
Motion, Mr. Riley. Second, Mr. Hudson. Questions on the motion? Take a vote. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
I vote yes, motion carried. Next.
Only 3 more to go. This one amends the setback requirements. Recall this came out of planning and zoning. The ordinance allows buildings to go to 52 feet or 4 stories, whichever is the greater. But if the commission looked at the fact that 42 feet is the legal limit now, so if you're staying within the legal limit, there should be a reduction in that setback, just because the setback was designed to offset the bulk of these buildings potentially from what could be a single-family AR1 subdivision. If the height of the building is the same as what's permitted in the AR1, the thought being that you don't necessarily need as much separation between the two. So this one is, be it moved that the Workforce Housing Ordinance addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, in relevant portions of Chapter 115 of the Sussex County Code be revised to amend the setback requirements by adding a new sentence at the end of Sections 115-20, 115-29, 115-37, 115-47, and 115-53 of the Zoning Code at Sections 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 of the Ordinance at lines 824, 825 through 825, 888 through 889, 951 to 952, 1014 to 1015, and 1077 to 1078, so that these now state as follows. The height of any townhouse or multifamily building shall not exceed 52 feet or 4 stories, whichever is greater, provided, however, that if the height does not exceed 42 feet, then the setback described in this subsection shall be reduced from 100 feet to 50 feet.
Pleasure, council.
Move for adoption.
Motion, Mr. Riley. Second, Mr. Schaefer. Any questions on the motion? Take a vote. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Green? Yes. Mr. Riley? Yes. Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carried. Next, sir.
This one just sort of tweaked the sidewalk and interconnectivity requirements based on feedback we got. So it is, be it moved that the Workforce Housing Ordinance addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, and relevant portions of Chapter 115 of the Sussex County Code be revised to amend the sidewalk and interconnectivity requirement in Sections 115-20, 115-29, 115-37, 115-47, and 115-53 of the Zoning Code at Sections 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 of the ordinance at lines 826 to 827, 890 to 891, 953 to 954, 1016 to 1017, and 1079 to 1080, so that these now state as follows. There shall be sidewalks on at least one side of all streets, roadways, and parking areas with interconnectivity to adjacent walkway systems wherever possible.
Pleasure, your counsel.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Schaefer. Second.
Second.
Mr. Hudson. Questions on the motion?
So that's
Mr. Riley?
only sidewalks? What about through the parking lot or other roadway interconnectivity?
So there shall be sidewalks on at least one side of all streets, roadways, and parking areas. So that's the sidewalks. And it talks about interconnectivity of the sidewalk system to adjacent walkway systems wherever possible. So that just dealt with sidewalks. The roadway interconnectivity, that's still an issue that's part of the site plan review.
Yeah, this is kind of a side, if you bear with me for a second, but I was at the 5-point working group meeting last night, and one of the issues that came up was we had commentary from Glenn Marshall, who's a member of the Lewis Fire Company, and talking about the interconnectivity of various developments and the lack thereof being an impediment to being access neighborhoods conveniently, also for the EMTs, not just fire companies. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering, are we still overlooking that aspect of, or should we be addressing that?
So this ordinance doesn't specifically address that, but I will tell you that the Commission has been addressing it. I would say that itself may be an issue that should be looked at more globally with regard to all residential projects, whether they're subdivisions, conditional uses, RPCs. I will tell you that at the Commission level, there's been a real desire to have, if not interconnectivity, more than one entrance into a subdivision. Ms. Hoey-Stevenson's very adamant about that because, frankly, I think it comes from personal experience where she has a one-way in, one-way out subdivision, and if that's blocked because of an accident, then everybody's sort of stuck. And we're getting off track a little bit, but where it gets dicey is in all of these, the developers or the existing homeowners association don't necessarily want it because they look at it, since they're private streets, of being burdened by additional traffic. But how we've gotten around it, at least with having two entrances, is that in a majority of the cases now the designers realize that that's an issue, so they're designing it so that if there's not a street entrance, there's at least an emergency entrance, a means for EMS or fire companies to get into a subdivision, even if that's not open to regular vehicular traffic.
There's nothing in the ordinance that prohibits the P&Z Commission from imposing that, correct?
No, there's not. That's they've been adding that, as part of the design requirement. Yeah. Now on commercial site plans, there is that requirement. So if somebody comes in on commercial, you've got to have interconnectivity, even if the property next door isn't developed yet. There's got to be. It's designed so that we don't get all these little islands of commercial development. There's the idea that hopefully they would be interconnected. But if there's not an access road, at least there's a means to get through without having to get out on the county roads. So.
More questions? Take the vote, Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
I vote yes. Next, sir.
Last but not least, this one just deletes the primary view requirement. This was a design requirement, and it was sort of one of those things that was the best intentions, but we didn't want to. There was concerns about this in terms of allowing designers to be able to design their project, and that we didn't want to potentially have somebody not go through with an SCRP project because of the way that we were saying it had to be designed with all units having the primary view on open space. And there was sort of a saving factor on that, is that all these SCRP units have to be integrated into the entire development. So it's not as though you could put all the SCRP units in one location with one view. You know, they would have to be integrated throughout the whole project. So the theory being that if it's going to be market rate, it's going to be designed well. So anyhow, we took that out because it just frankly wasn't that important to the goal of the whole thing. So this is, be it moved that the Workforce Housing Ordinance addressing the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP, in relevant portions of Chapter 115 of the Sussex County Code be revised to delete the primary view design requirement in Sections 115-20, 115-29, 115-37, 115-47, and 115-53 of the Zoning Code as Sections 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 of the ordinance at lines 831 to 833, 895 to 897, 958 to 960, 1021 to 1022, 1084 to 1085, so that these now state as follows. There shall be open space that exceeds 50% of the gross area of the entire site, period, and thereby deleting the sentence, the primary view of each dwelling unit shall be directed to open space and recreational amenities.
Pleasure, council.
Move for adoption.
Motion, Mr. Hudson.
Second.
Second, Mr. Schaefer. Any questions on the motion? Take a vote, Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Riley. Yes. Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carried. Mr. Moore, if you read a short title, please.
Yes, I will, Mr. President. And prior to reading, after I read that as amended, I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Robertson because he's going to read into the record reasons for the adoption. He wanted more billable words today. So, an ordinance amend an ordinance amend the Code of Sussex County, Chapter 72, Article 2, Roman numeral, Section 72-16 through 72-28, and Chapter 115, Article 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, Roman numerals, Section 115-20, 115-25, 115-29, 115-34, 115-37, 115-42, 115-45, 115-50, 115-53, and 115-58 regarding affordably priced rental units and the Sussex County Rental Unit SCRP program as amended today by council, and for the reasons to be read into the record by Mr. Robertson. Mr. Robertson.
So these are all reasons based on our comp plan and the efforts that have taken place through today. So those reasons being, Sussex County finds that the Workforce Housing Ordinance is appropriate based upon the record developed at the public hearings, the recommendation of the Sussex County Planning and Zoning Commission, and the report prepared by LSA, Sussex County's housing consultant, and for the following reasons. One, Sussex County Council has adopted the 2018 Comprehensive Development Plan, the plan, and the housing element of the plan contains the following housing vision: to ensure the provision of decent, safe, affordable, and safe housing opportunities to improve communities and quality of life for the residents of Sussex County. This ordinance is in furtherance of the housing vision contained in the plan. 2, the housing element of the plan recognizes that an influx of new residents in Sussex County has fueled prosperity in the county's real estate market, hospitality industry, and related economic sectors, yet most housing, particularly on the eastern side of the county, is new and often unaffordable to low and moderate income families, seasonal employees, entry-level workers, or recent college graduates. The housing element of the plan also recognizes that the shortage of affordable housing remains a very real problem for low to moderate income households in Sussex County, including many with full-time year-round jobs. This ordinance helps to address this issue by providing more affordable housing units through the county's SCRP program throughout Sussex County. 3, this ordinance ensures that a diversity of housing opportunities are available to meet the needs of residents of different ages, income levels, abilities, national origins, and household configurations, which is a goal of the housing element of the plan. 4, Strategy 8.2.1.1 of the housing element within the plan states that Sussex County will improve the county's SCRP and MPHU programs to provide incentives to properly reflect the housing market and incentivize developers to participate in the provision of affordable housing. This ordinance supports this strategy of the plan, and it satisfies Strategy 8.2.1.3 of the housing element, which states that the county should explore ways for private developers to provide multifamily and affordable housing opportunities. 5, this ordinance is supported by Objective 8.2.3 and Strategies 8.2.3.1, 8.2.3.2, and 8.2.3.6 of the housing element within the plan. These state that Sussex County should facilitate and promote land use policies that enable an increase in the supply of affordable housing in areas with adequate infrastructure by increasing affordable housing options, including the supply of rental units near employment opportunities, by reviewing county code to determine if there are regulatory barriers to development of affordable housing, and by revisiting the zoning code to determine in districts where multifamily housing is currently a conditional use, if it should be made a permitted use if water and sewer are already present and available on the site. 6, LSA, the housing consultant retained by Sussex County to study housing opportunities, issued its final report on housing opportunities and market evaluation following an 8-month initiative that included input from residents, home builders, developers, housing advocates, county staff, county council, and planning commissioners, that being the LSA report. One of the primary strategy recommendations included in the LSA report was a recommendation to modify the zoning code to promote housing affordability in the growth areas identified in the comprehensive plan, including the allowance for a maximum density of 12 units per acre by right where affordable housing units are provided. This ordinance carries out the goals, objectives, and strategies of the Sussex County Comprehensive Plan and the LSA report. 7, the affordable rental units created by operation of this ordinance will be monitored by Sussex County's Community Development and Housing Department to ensure that they are occupied by and available to qualified households. 8, by creating a by right process for multifamily developments that provide at least 25% affordably priced rental units, the uncertainty associated with a rezoning or conditional use is eliminated. 9, Chapter 72 of the Sussex County Code previously established the Sussex County Rental Program, or SCRP. However, only one development has utilized this program. For that reason, and based upon the lessons learned from that loan development, an amendment to Chapter 72 is appropriate. This ordinance significantly improves and streamlines the existing SCRP program. 10, a great deal of public comment was provided about this ordinance during the public hearings that occurred. A majority of the public comment was supportive of the need for more affordable housing opportunities as provided by this ordinance. There were also many constructive comments made during the process that were taken into account as part of the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations and the amendments today. This ordinance, as amended, reflects many of those suggestions made during the hearing process. 11, this ordinance is supported by the recommendation of the Sussex County Planning and Zoning Commission. And finally, number 12, this ordinance promotes and protects the health, safety, convenience, orderly growth, and welfare of the inhabitants of Sussex County.
Thank you, sir.
You're
For
welcome.
adoption.
Pleasure, council. Motion, Mr. Schaefer, second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Hudson. Questions on the motion? Take the vote, Mr. Schaefer.
I would like to thank you for all your hard work in Planning and Zoning Commission. I am certain that through the course of the implementation of this ordinance, we'll find that we possibly could have done some things better. And however, I think this is a monumental step in the right direction, and I vote yes.
Mrs. Green?
So based on the need for affordable housing, and I do want to commend you for including as many people as possible, addressing each and every concept and need and possible improvement. You did all of that, and I vote yes.
Mr. Riley?
I vote yes.
Mr. Hudson?
I vote yes. Great work.
I will also vote yes. Motion carried. Thank you and Brandy and your staff and Planning and Zoning and all the public and everybody that participated. This was a long time coming. You know, we go back at 3+ years with this. A lot of talking, a lot of work, a lot of effort, but I think it's and Mr. Schaefer said this. Well, I'm sure we're going to amend something down the road. There's no perfect ordinance, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it puts on a good place to start somewhere, and hopefully it benefits the residents of Sussex County. So thank everybody very much for your participation.
Thank you.
Good job.
And it doesn't, I know you mentioned, Mr. President, all of us, it's really been a team effort. I mean, you know, Ms. Noman has been really involved in it. Jamie's been really involved. LSA gave us sort of a framework that was based on data, not, you know, sort of opinions, and that really helped us get where we need to be. And plus, as you mentioned, we had a lot of stakeholders, and that certainly included the public, and included housing advocates. We had lots of those, and the developers who would potentially build this. So, and we actually, Mr. Whitehouse went out, because one of the things, as you know, we wanted to do was make sure that it was feasible. So we actually designed some of these to make sure they would work. So it was a total team effort from people on the county side and people on the public side and people in the industry side. So it was a worthwhile endeavor, and I'm sure that it's going to be a work in progress too as we start implementing these. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.